Thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is the News International edition, and we are broadcasting to you live from our Vision Group headquarters here in Kampala, Uganda. Now, the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has urged Western allies to support Ukraine with military aid at the opening of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting at Ramstein Air Base. This is not a moment to slow down. It is a time to dig deeper. The Ukrainian people are watching us. The Kremlin is watching us, and history is watching us, the host of the donor meeting said. President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday also urged Western allies to deliver tanks to Ukraine at a key defense conference in Germany, although the Kremlin denied the weapons would change anything on the battlefield.
Addressing the U.S.-hosted donor meeting at the Ramstein Air Base, Zelensky implored Western allies to speed up arms deliveries in the face of the Russian onslaught. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin urged Western allies to support Ukraine with military aid at the opening of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group meeting at Ramstein Air Base.
This is not a moment to slow down. It's a time to dig deeper. The Ukrainian people are watching us. The Kremlin is watching us, and history is watching us. Our German hosts have announced that they will also provide a Patriot air defense system for Ukraine, complementing our own Patriot contribution. Germany will also donate Marder infantry fighting vehicles for Ukraine. And last week, Canada announced that it would provide a NASAMS air defense system to Ukraine.
On the eve of the Ramstein talks, allies including the United States had already announced substantial new arms shipments. The Pentagon on Thursday released a long list of $2.5 billion worth of supplies for Ukrainian forces, including Bradley fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, air defense systems, and tens of thousands of rockets and artillery rounds.
Our Ukrainian friends will discuss the situation on the ground and their most urgent needs, especially air defense and armored vehicles. And then we'll discuss our complementary training initiatives. We'll also get an update on ways to energize the industrial base coming out of the National Armaments Directors Meeting. And finally, we'll hear from many of the countries here today about your ongoing support for Ukraine's self-defense.
Britain announced it would send 600 Brimstone missiles, Denmark said it would donate 19 French-made Caesar howitzers, and Sweden promised its Acre artillery system and a modern mobile howitzer requested by Kyiv for months. But all eyes are on long-sought German-made Leopard battle tanks, which Berlin has so far declined to provide and which the Kremlin has warned would amount to an extremely dangerous escalation if sent by the West.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope you know that we will continue to stand up for Ukraine's right to defend itself, and we will continue to stand up for the principle that borders may not be redrawn by force. And we will continue to stand up for an open world of rules, rights, and responsibility.
At the annual World Economic Forum gathering in Davos, Chancellor Olaf Scholz told U.S. Congress members that Germany would supply heavy tanks to Ukraine only if the United States sent tanks too, a senior U.S. lawmaker told AFP on Thursday.
Now here is an animated map showing the location of one of two attacks in Burkina Faso, which security sources say targeted members of the Volunteers for the Defense of the Fatherland and which killed 7 people. 2 suspected jihadist attacks killed at least 18 people, including 16 auxiliaries supporting the army in Burkina Faso, security sources said on Friday. Thursday's attacks in the north and northwest of the country were the latest to hit a civilian auxiliary force that supports the military in a 7-year fight against jihadists. Landlocked Burkina Faso in West Africa is one of the poorest and most volatile nations in the world. Since 2015, it has been grappling with an insurgency led by jihadists affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group that has killed tens of thousands and displaced around 2 million people. Around 10 people were wounded, including some seriously, who were evacuated to Ouagadougou for appropriate care, the VDP officials said. The VDP, set up in December 2019, comprises civilian volunteers who are given 2 weeks military training and then work alongside the army, typically carrying out surveillance, information gathering, or escort duties. Commentators worry that the poorly trained volunteers are easy targets for jihadists and may dangerously inflame ethnic friction without proper controls. Last week, around 60 women, girls and babies in the northern Jibo region were abducted while gathering wild fruits and other food, investigators have said. Violence targeting security forces and civilians has increased in recent months, especially in northern and eastern regions bordering jihadist-hit Mali and Niger. Also, as COVID-19 rips through China's vast population, making millions sick and fueling a shortage of drugs, many are turning to traditional medicines to battle the aches and pains of the virus, encompassing a range of treatments from herbal remedies and massages, acupuncture and diets. Traditional Chinese medicine has been used for thousands of years to treat all manner of ailments. Critics say it's pseudoscientific and ineffective in treating actual illness, and there is little peer-reviewed data to back claims of its efficacy. However, millions in China use it, often in conjunction with modern medicine, to alleviate the symptoms.
President Xi Jinping has promoted traditional Chinese medicine since the start of the pandemic, while health officials have hailed its important role in fighting the coronavirus. Encompassing a range of treatments from herbal remedies and massages to acupuncture and diets, traditional Chinese medicine has been used for thousands of years to treat all manner of ailments. Huang Luqi, deputy head of the National Administration of Traditional Chinese Medicine, says they have recommended it. We have recommended 70 Chinese patent medicines for the masses to use at home. We have encouraged all localities to formulate prescriptions of traditional Chinese medicine for COVID treatment and allowed the medical institutions to share specific traditional Chinese medicine preparations. We are trying our best to expand the supply of traditional Chinese medicine. Beijing consultant Yu Lei, 38, had a fever after catching COVID, so he made a herbal tea with reputed anti-inflammatory properties featuring cassia twig, a kind of Chinese cinnamon, peony roots, licorice, jujubes, and ginger. I had fever symptoms in the afternoon of the December 6th and brewed up a dose of herbal tea for myself at 8 p.m. I had a fever of 40 degrees Celsius at 8:30 p.m. Later that night, I sweated a lot and the fever was gone. I haven't had fever since then. Critics say it is pseudoscientific and ineffective in treating actual illness, and there is little peer-reviewed data to back claims of its efficacy. Critics say it is pseudoscientific and ineffective in treating actual illness, and there is little peer-reviewed data to back claims of its efficacy. However, millions in China use it, often in conjunction with modern medicine, to alleviate symptoms. According to followers like you, traditional Chinese medicines have fewer side effects and work slower to regulate the body rather than Western medicines that fight the symptoms but rarely the source of the illness. When I was 30, I met a friend who is a traditional Chinese medicine expert, and he has been teaching me traditional Chinese medicine knowledge since then. I find the medicine very effective after trying for several times, so I started to acknowledge it and study it myself. COVID is not an exception. I've always used those herbal teas to cure colds. From a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, the symptoms of COVID are caused by cold factors, and my body also showed that, so I used warm medicine to cure it. Beijing has urged local authorities to actively and objectively publicize the role and efficacy of traditional Chinese medicine brews in the treatment of COVID-19. However, Ben Cowling, chair of epidemiology at the University of Hong Kong School of Public Health, told AFP, "We don't know whether these treatments are effective or not because they haven't been studied in clinical trials."
Symptomatic relief, like paracetamol, like some other common over-the-counter medicines, and like some Chinese medicines, can provide symptomatic relief, can allow people to function better while they have mild symptoms. But those treatments, and the Chinese medicine as well, may not help to reduce the chance of a more serious disease progression, like a progression to pneumonia or a requirement for hospitalization. And to achieve that kind of treatment objective, I think the only treatments that we are aware can do that are the antiviral drugs like Paxlovid.
Cowling believes effectiveness can only be established after careful trials are done.
Chinese medicines, without a rigorous assessment, I don't think it's possible to say whether they're really providing value for money, because you have to pay for them. And I wouldn't rule out the possibility that some medicines might have some harmful ingredients, at least for certain types of people. We'd only know that with carefully done trials and also with some other carefully done studies. So I'm not against the idea of using Chinese medicine, but I would very much like to have clinical trials available to demonstrate how well these medicines work.
The World Health Organization only recommends COVID treatments that are based on chemical drugs. When contacted by AFP about traditional Chinese medicine, the body said it advised countries to gather reliable evidence and data on traditional medicine practices and products.
And finally, a dancer's futuristic headgear glints under the lights at a top Tokyo ballet show. But just 2 months ago, their plastic costumes were sticky bottles tossed in a recycling bin. Plastic, a new production by renowned Japanese company K Ballet, aims to draw attention to a global pollution crisis that experts say is only getting worse.
The dancer's futuristic headgear glints under the lights at a top ballet show, but just 2 months ago, their plastic costumes were sticky bottles tossed into a Tokyo recycling bin. Plastic, a new production by renowned Japanese company K Ballet, aims to draw attention to a global pollution crisis through some unusual set and wardrobe design. Tutus made from used bubble wrap, 4 huge recycled bottle walls, and 100 transparent umbrellas left behind in the Japanese capital all feature in the performance, which drew a full house to its first short run in Yokohama. Resembling space-age creatures with hand-cleaned PET bottles strapped to their bodies, a troupe including US guest star Julian McKay leaped and spun their way through a shifting labyrinth on stage. Plastic waste has doubled globally in 20 years, and only 9% is successfully recycled, according to the OECD group of developed countries. The United Nations says the volume of plastic entering the oceans will nearly triple by 2040. McKay, 25, told AFP that the huge problem of plastic waste really hasn't gotten that spotlight in the dance world, and he believes performing arts can help inspire people to act.
This is such a unique project, and I really want more things like this to exist about issues like recycling and plastic and environmental things, because I don't think I ever would have thought before this that a crushed up bottle is beautiful, and that there is beauty in things like that, because I haven't seen it this way even myself before. And so it's been that process of excitement, working with this different material that we don't usually work with. When I roll on the floor, it makes sounds like this, and it kind of affects you in a different way. It's something that, for me personally, has been a journey of discovery and growth, and I think also for the audience, it's like, wow, I never thought of that before.
Back in November, past midnight, in Tokyo's Harajuku Fashion District, K Ballet's chief producer, Taiju Takano, and scenographer Naoya Sakata went rooting through recycling bins to find their plastic props. Joining staff from waste management company Shirai Eco Center, they shook out tubs and sorted plastic bottles from piles of used coffee cups, aluminium cans, and cigarette butts.
Take a medium like ballet and dance, and you add it in together with recycling or upcycling. You kind of force people to think, well, what else can I do? What else works? How else does this piece together? And I think even just for me, the ability to see like a plastic bottle on a costume is a first for me. I've danced tons of productions all over the world, and this is the first time somebody has been like, let's add plastic bottles onto your costume, let's make it look like this. This is the concept that we want to do. And I think that just goes to show that there are limitless possibilities for people to still innovate and create with something like plastic that started out that way as a huge innovation to society, and has helped a lot of people's lives too.
Sakata also used machine recycled PET bottles provided by Shirai to construct the pixel-like bottle walls and huge LED letters that descended to spell party people in the upbeat finale of the show's first half. Overall, more than 10,000 recycled and reused bottles were used in plastic, and 28-year-old Sakata said it made him realize the amount thrown away each day is shocking. Single-use plastic remains a huge problem in Japan, where even individual pieces of fruit frequently come packaged.
っていうのは今、諸外国に比べるとさまざまなプラスチックの
In Japan, compared to other countries, I honestly think that awareness on various plastic use is low. Through the power of art, I am happy if this performance can change something or tackle the issue in a meaningful way. However, Japan's residents generate only a third of the plastic waste their American counterparts do, according to the OECD, and less than the average for the organization's European members. Japan also collects and recycles more plastic than many countries, although often for thermal recycling, where waste is burned for energy. As audience members filed out of the auditorium, Ayumi Kisaki, a 30-year-old actor, said the performance made her reflect on the problem. Yes, you are right. It's an issue I don't usually think about. But by these dancers highlighting the issue of plastic, it helped me think of it as my own issue to tackle. K Ballet plans to keep its costumes and props for at least a year with the hope of restaging the show, after which Shirai will recycle the bottles.
And that brings us to the end of the News International edition. We shall be back again on Monday at 4 p.m. From me and the team behind the scenes, thank you for watching and have a splendid weekend.